What's going on, everybody? Louie T here from Because Bitcoin, and we're here for another market update. Bitcoin is in the crapper, so we're not talking about Bitcoin and crypto today. We'll come back to that next week. And I'm going to talk about 4 stocks on my watch list that I'm starting to build positions in that I think have some good upside potential here. Before we get into that, though, I need you to hit that like button, subscribe, turn on post notifications if you haven't already, and check out the links down below. BB Discord, our all-in-one community trading group, active morning calls before the market open, 8 analyst TA channels, alert bots, offering a limited time promo. Also very important, BB Trader X, our newest flagship product. That is our automated trading software where you can follow proven strategies or vibe code your own with our proprietary AI strategy builder. All you need is a Hyperliquid wallet or account, and there are no subscription fees attached to that. So make sure to check that out, and let's dive into it, shall we? So I said I have 4 stocks for you. If we can get through these quick, maybe we'll throw in a bonus or two, but these are really some hidden gem stocks that I think are flying under the radar here, sitting at value prices. We've seen the stock market really entering, the acceleration phase of its bull run, where a lot of older stocks that have gone unnoticed for the past 2 years are starting to come back to life. So rather than chase the ones that have already come strongly off the lows, I'm eyeing some potential plays that can allow entries at the floor. And that's where I like to do business. I don't chase pumps. I like to position where the liquidity is coming, not where it is. So you're nice and comfy and early to your positioning. And that's, to start off, PayPal, I think this is one that fits that bill, right? Just zooming out here. This is a weekly chart, guys. So as you can see, guys, this was a very strong performer in 2021. A lot of the, tech stocks were, right? But also a lot of them have gotten absolutely demolished. PayPal being one of them, where this stock topped in 2021 and has been in a downtrend and or bear market ever since. So 2021, today we're sitting here at the recording of this video, is 2026. That's 5 years of downtrend and bear market for this stock. And this has long been forgotten, right? This has been long forgotten. I'm not a big fundamental guy, right? I mostly am, technical technical analysis and playing stocks and cryptos that way. But it is good to have a little bit of background information when it comes to stocks versus crypto. One thing that I like coming out of this stock right now is they are pivoting and starting to invest in their AI infrastructure, as well as they just recently got the approval to do business in China, specifically with WeChat. If you don't know what WeChat is, it's pretty much the biggest platform for China that civilians use to talk to each other, process payments. So PayPal pretty much just got onboarded to China, and that's a massive market. And that's just some fundamental news that's come out recently that I think can help spark a move here. But as far as technical is concerned, again, 5-year bear market, guys. This has been beaten to a pulp. And one thing you notice here when you look at this chart is that this has now entered and stabbed into pretty much its IPO price from back in 2015. Like, this is where PayPal IPO'd back in 2015, and this is where it all began, right? So PayPal has pretty much went full circle, and I would truly consider these prices value prices, right? So 5-year bear market / downtrend, trading into your pretty much your last bit of market structure, which is the IPO price, on this last major plunge down here that this stock saw in February of this year. And is now looking to rebound. Look, I mean, how I'm looking at this is starting to compress a bit. As this is trading into major demand, this is starting to compress into this apex of this, falling wedge, compression, whatever you want to call it. And I love setups like this where you have a falling consolidation into a major demand zone, which is this blue zone below us. I've done a falling wedge tutorial video. Maybe we can link that right above. Check that out. But this is textbook setup that I would look for longs, right? For longs. This has been beaten down for a long time. There's no reason to be bearish on this, but I think there's a great reasoning to start getting curious, or at least slightly bullish on this. Obviously, it has to prove itself, right? So, what do I want to see out of PayPal? Well, we need for this to be the low, right? We need this plunge on February to be the low. We need some sort of higher low formed where we're at right now. This can return to the low. Maybe we get some sort of double bottom, right? Which would be bring it back to around like $40. Right now sitting at 44, 45. So what I would say is anywhere around 40 or $45, this zone right here, I like for building longs, whether that's spot, whether that's options. I'm currently playing this on options. Definitely more riskier approach to playing this. But that's just how I'm playing this stock. So what we want to see, higher low or continue to base down here. And we want to start seeing a push back up into this $55 level. This is a big key inflection point. Why is that? Well, you have your falling, descending trend line resistance here. Obviously, clear resistance at this trend line as shown previously, but also this is a major horizontal resistance as well, where this has previously acted as major support for a little over 2 years. We are now below it. So if and when we can push up into this $55 area and you're positioning around this level, right there is a 26% gain if you're taking the riskier entry, right? If you want to wait, right, and take a more cautious and more confirming entry, what you want to do is see how price reacts if and when it comes up to this level, right? Does it reject? Okay, if it rejects, there's a good chance maybe this comes lower, right? There's no guarantees. But if this comes up to here, maybe we see some a little bit of consolidation, but begins to reclaim this $55 level, getting back above these lows, starting to break out of this falling wedge and this compression we're seeing in the apex of this structure. I think this is very confirming for a big squeeze back to the upside. And that's something we've been seeing a lot of these stocks that have been forgotten and sitting on the floor. These stocks are heavily shorted. These stocks, everyone's pretty much sold them and forgotten about it. When these get moving, whether it's a short squeeze or whether it's a FOMO buyback into the stock, these tend to squeeze. So, a technical target, if this was to break 55, obviously we're still a ways away from that, right? So, but that's opportunity, right? That's opportunity. So if and when this can break and get above 55, my measured move target here is around $90, right? So you have a stock sitting at 44 with a measured move target of around 90. If it can break this horizontal and this falling wedge, that's 100% move, guys. That's a doubling of price. And if you're playing options, you can make a lot more than that, right? So really liking the area. Liking that this has been in a downtrend, trading into major support, and is flying under the radar. So this is a great candidate for one that just magically surprises people off the lows. And obviously, if we begin to lose our local low here at around $40, this is invalidated for me for now. And maybe we see how this trades down in here. But the company beat on its last earnings and actually sold off, right? So that's a little suspicious as well. It's something I like to look for. If a stock beats earnings and it sells and it's already down, that tells me that it's possible this is being accumulated and being brought back for accumulation. So PayPal, that's the first one on the list. All right, next on the list is AI. Literally, the ticker is AI. Do I need to say more? Yeah, the company is actually C3 AI. If you've been paying attention to the stock market at all for the last few years, you know there's been a monster AI bull run occurring as we speak. However, this one, for some strange reason, hasn't participated in that bull run just yet. And that's caveat is yet. I think there were a lot of issues with the CEO. And just some business practices that weren't really working. And believe it or not, this was an earlier AI company that's actually kind of fumbled the bag here for the bull run, at least for now. But what I like about this stock is, well, one caveat: I'm filming this Tuesday afternoon. This actually has earnings tomorrow, June 3rd. I'm not sure if it's before, after, either before the open or after the close, but that is a caveat that can set this, this setup I'm looking at into motion, right? So what is the setup I'm looking for? Where again, similar to PayPal, this was a pretty much IPO'd in the craziness of the 2021 bull run, has been getting absolutely smashed ever since, right? So another one that's been in a bear market pretty much for 5 years, guys. What I like about this setup, um, and I've been telling this to the Discord. We got in a few days ago on this one, and that's why kind of it's important to be in there. You guys get these a little later. Is that this is one of the most beautiful high time frame ranges and accumulation setups I've ever seen. Right? Normally, it's not this clean, but if you were to pull up a picture of like a Wyckoff accumulation schematic, this is what you're going to see. Right? You're going to see a range. You're going to see a downtrend. You're going to see a range form. You're going to see a low sweep. You're going to see the move back inside. And then you see the breakout, right? So downtrend, accumulation, uptrend. And that's exactly what we're seeing here right now. And it's super clean. And this is on the weekly time frame, guys. This range pretty much started forming at the end of 2022. So this is a 3.5 year accumulation range. And the larger the base, the higher in the space. So this did already deviate its range low, right here for the last few months. And is starting to curl back up and try and attempt to push back inside this range. And this is one of my favorite setups, guys. I call it the deviation spring setup, where you have an established range or some sort of trend line. Price loses that range. Everyone thinks it's going to break down. So they sell, they capitulate, they get out of the market. It then curls up, reclaims the range. And if and when the reclaim of the range is established, you see a monster spring back the other way. And they're usually pretty vicious moves back to the upside. So that is why I love playing these setups, because your risk reward is quite skewed in your favor, where it's very easily and obvious that if you lose this low that you put in here back in March, this is probably going to go lower and your trade is invalidated. But if it doesn't lose the low and it is able to reclaim the range, your upside is way skewed in your favor, right? You'd be targeting back to the range highs. And again, if you're coming back to your range highs for a third or fourth attempt, you're likely going to see even a breakout of the range, right? So currently, we're going to stick level to level on this, right? So right now, peeking its head back inside this range. I try to zoom in a little more for you so you can see it a little better. But currently, right now on this weekly, attempting to push back inside this range. So I'm already positioned from slightly lower, around $10. It's been up like 15-20% since I entered and gave the call to the Discord. But if this gets good earnings or gets some sort of good guidance, right, that can be a catalyst for that big spring that I'm looking for. So right now, have been building position in this, fully sized in, and waiting to see on the earnings. Does this come back down to the lows, right? Does this lose its low? Our trade is invalidated. We get out. But if it is bullish, right, and it is a good earnings report, I'm obviously going to be eyeing this blue zone I marked here around $18, $19. if and when it could flip this level, your real big target is around $43, $44, guys. So you have a stock sitting at 11 at range lows with the range high sitting at 44. That's a 4x potential return with minimal downside, right? So your upside is all here, your downside is here, right? So your risk reward heavily skewed in your favor, and that's when you take your biggest shots, in my opinion. So this is a sleeper that's in AI that hasn't moved just yet and could be, a laggard catch-up play in a big way if you haven't been able to capitalize on that, those market movements just yet. Next on the list is Neo. This is, another one very similar. If you're catching a theme here, I like to buy things low. Another one that was a big runner in 2021, big bull market, and has been getting pummeled ever since, right? This one, more so compared to PayPal and AI, is that this has actually come off its lows a bit, right? Where this has actually returned to its lows, right, near its IPO price on this plunge down here. Very similar to PayPal. And I would say PayPal is probably sitting more around here if you were to compare the charts. It has since broken out of its falling wedge, price compression and consolidation into this demand level, and is now trying to flip this into support and break higher. So this is actually one of the more constructive looking ones, in my opinion. And we can zoom in on the daily here, but another one where, this is a EV car company, right? Where I'm actually getting quite bullish on EVs, especially if oil is going to remain elevated for a longer period of time. It's just a matter of time before the narrative of EVs comes back to life in that environment, right? Saving on gas, using electric cars, stuff like that. So what am I looking for as far as this stock? I'm looking for this to hold 550, right? This blue zone I have marked, clear SR level, has gotten above it and is now attempting to flip it into support. And I'm looking for the breakout, with the first target of around 960, currently sitting around $6. And coming into a local downtrend resistance here, right? So you kind of have like a bull flag looking structure here into demand. This is a catalyst for continuation if it can hold this blue zone. So if it holds the blue zone and gets a break of this downtrend, I think we could see a pretty quick move up into 960. And then we see, right, does this flip this upper territory? If it can, then I'm eyeing higher targets around 1550. And that would be, not much in the grand scheme of things. When you zoom out on this chart, you literally would just be trading the bottom half of this bear market. So it's really not out of the question, in my opinion. Not even getting close to the previous all-time highs, but a lot of room to run. Again, a stock sitting at 6 that could potentially hit 15. That's like a 2.5x. So worth paying attention to, and has shown a little bit more signs of life versus the previous two. So it could have a higher probability hit rate with that. And I like the EV narrative. And last but not least, we have Dash or DoorDash. I use DoorDash a lot, guys. I don't know about you, but I use it a lot. But that's not really the reason why I'm eyeing this stock. It's more of the technical setup, right? Where when I look at this zoomed out on the weekly, this is a beautiful cup and handle pattern potentially brewing here. A cup and handle, very simply put, is you have a high, you create a big rounding bottom or a cup looking structure, and you return to the high, right? So that's your cup. Then once you get to that resistance, you begin forming a consolidation or a handle. That's what's called the handle. And if we're technically speaking here, if DoorDash is going to break out, right, where there's no guarantee it will, right, this can definitely just continue lower from here. But, if we're looking at levels here, if this is to be a successful cup and handle continuation pattern, this really needs to hold here, right? Because if it doesn't hold, what price is this? Around 143, 140, and this loses 140, this is coming back down to the lows, guys, or a minimum back to like 98, 100 bucks, right? So again, another setup where if you're beginning to position in here, which I am starting to build a position slowly but surely, if I'm, if this loses its local lows, I know I'm out fairly quickly and I'll cut it on a loss of this low. But if I'm right, and this is a good buying opportunity, this will break the downtrend, this falling ascending channel we have here, or the handle, and would have a target minimum back to your all-time high resistance. And these are called continuation patterns for a reason, because after rejecting on a first attempt, coming back for a second, these, technically speaking, are continuation patterns and do lead to some sort of price discovery of the asset. So again, I like my risk reward. Your risk is down here if you're entering here, and your profit, potential profit, is all the way up here. That's a great risk reward profile. And I like the fact that this is already, I think, like 30% off the highs, 50% off the highs, excuse me. So this had a strong run, has pulled back, and now we're looking for the higher low here. So another one I like, I'm slowly building a position here. This is definitely the smaller of the four. I'm sorry. I started literally building a position in this yesterday, and we'll see. Obviously, if we can get this channel break, I may want to add more on confirmation, right? But I like taking a little bit of a riskier entry to start building, so I could start, gaining profits on a potential break, and then adding on confirmation and looking for that breakout. And also, I believe the weekly RSI looks super clean on this as well. Yeah, so the weekly RSI also giving signals that it's potentially bottomed, right? This went from overbought back down to oversold territory, put in a little double bottom bounce here, and is now bouncing back the other way and inching towards oversold, or being relatively strong versus relatively weak. So we have a bottomed RSI. We have a stock that's 50% off the highs, and if the pattern plays out, it should in fact bottom where it is now, with pretty large upside potential. From here to your all-time high, you're looking at a 77% return. And if you wanted to take a measure move target, this is the technical way to take it, but take these targets with a grain of salt. They are not exact. It's not an exact science, but if this were to pull off the cup and handle and break all-time highs, your target from here sits around $480, which is almost a 3x from where we're sitting today. So another high value, high reward, low risk play. And I'm positioned, guys, and I'm building positions. If you liked the content shared, guys, I've been sharing all these stocks to our Discord for weeks. We're in from lower, from where this is now. Again, I think there's a lot of value, but check out the link down below for the Discord. You can get this every day, not just when I post a video. And until then, I'll continue to track these stocks and post updates as I can. But until then, I'll see you next week. Peace.